Good evening. This is Thursday, July the 25th, North Andover Board of Health meeting. I'm Joe McCarthy. I'm filling in for Dr. Frank McMillan. He's the chairman. He'll be here in about 10 to 15 minutes. But the first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The minutes, they're still under review, so they will not be signed until next month. Public hearings. Comments at all?
There are no public hearings scheduled for tonight.
Then let's get directly to communications, announcements, and discussions. As noted last month, we talked a little bit about the tobacco regulations, the changes that we're looking at making in September. There'll be an open meeting for further review and discussion. We also talked about the body art regulations, the changes we are in the midst of making there, but we will not have an open meeting for discussion in September. I imagine it'll be sometime, probably later this year? Or?
It could be probably October, maybe September, depending on how the tobacco regulations go. We can put it on the agenda, discuss it in September, and then maybe do the public hearing in October, depending on how our schedule looks.
Also, too, last month, Dr. Hartman and Ron Beauregard were here, and they spent a lot of time talking about tobacco, the issues of concern. I know when we updated our regulations 3 years or so ago, I didn't want to do anything at all until I saw the products, tobacco products, that really are focused to attract the young people, the kids, the additions and so forth to them, and that did it for me. So North Andover, to an extent, has played a lead in Massachusetts as far as tobacco, the regulations, and we want to continue as such. How do you want to handle this? Last month we talked about the changes. We want to go over them one-on-one, or do you want to hear if any of us have associated concerns with the changes that we're talking about making?
Yeah, I'd like to go over the process for the next meeting in the public hearing, the tobacco regulations. I did include some information in your packets regarding things we're going to look at, and it starts off with things to consider and follow the tobacco regulations revisions, public hearing procedures. So we'll get to that next. But I think if you guys want to discuss any of the changes you guys looked at last time, any questions we can make note of and talk to Ron Beauregard and Cheryl Sabara, who is the MAHB attorney who helps draft regulations like this to keep them within the scope of our purview and with case law that's been already established with tobacco regulations. So having them on board and having any questions for them at the public hearing will definitely be to your benefit. So anything
now,
you guys have, we can.
The members of the board, we have a general idea and understanding of the changes that we would like to make. But
Yes.
You have a really in-depth understanding. Would you quickly review the main changes, and then some of us will talk about what warrants further discussion or what we may
Yes.
not want to do?
I think in speaking in generalities, as for a discussion purpose, the number one thing that has been brought before you guys is the additional flavor restrictions, which would include mint and menthol, wintergreen. Those types of flavors have always been exempt. Public health advocates have been pushing for these to be included in the existing flavor ban, which we already have, and expanding that to encompass things like that, which are still what they're talking about in the data and the evidence that they have, leading youth and underage smokers or teenagers to use nicotine products because it is flavored, it is enticing. So that's the debate that you guys have before you, is to include that additional flavor restriction on tobacco that's legally sold in North Andover under your regulations. Some other things that we talked about was permit caps, limiting locations where you can buy electronic cigarettes in e-liquid or e-juice or liquid nicotine, and things along those natures. So caps of where they're sold, how many permits we issue for overall tobacco, how many permits you issue for maybe tobacco-only retailers, and then caps on locations where you can actually sell the electronic vaping equipment and the cartridges that have the nicotine in them. So that's what's kind of before you guys and what's in draft form in the regulations. Nothing has obviously been voted on. It's all discussion right now. We will continue the discussion at the next public hearing, but if you guys have any questions, it's time to discuss that, bring it out there, put it out in the open, and I can inquire with legal, MAHB, and Ron Beauregard, who is our Healthy Communities Tobacco Control Agent.
So I have a question. What do surrounding towns have as far as their cap for the adult-only stores?
You know, I don't have that exact number. I do know that some places do have tobacco-only retailers that can sell things above and beyond what you can buy at a regular convenience store. So convenience stores may limit or ban and restrict flavors. Tobacco-only stores don't have that restriction in some locations. So that's something that's also out there and might not be in the regulations yet, but something to think about and to discuss tonight or at the next public hearing to include or
We talked
omit.
a little bit about that before the meeting today, and the elimination of menthol, mint, and wintergreen from tobacco. Did they do that in Billerica and the 5 other communities that are being sued right now?
Yes.
They did.
Sorry, did you ask about the cap or the flavor restriction?
The flavors.
Okay, yeah, sorry. They did, and that's why they're being brought into court, or that's why there was a suit filed against them, because they did ban or restrict those flavors from being sold in convenience stores. I'm not sure if they went as far as to ban them in tobacco-only retailers or with just convenience stores. I think, obviously, the logic behind that is underage or teenagers or young kids go into convenience stores all the time. I think what the data says from the CDC is if they go into convenience stores over 2 or 3 times a week, they're twice as likely to buy or experiment with these things because they see them all the time, and it normalizes it. So that's one of the reasons why public health advocates have wanted to get them out of the convenience stores.
Frank, we just started the discussion on the tobacco regulations and the associated changes. Brian just commenting on the menthol, mint, and wintergreen. By the way, this has been televised over the last 10 minutes or so ago. And I just asked if that was the reason that Bill Rick and 5 other towns are being sued, and he said, yes. So Brian already covered some of the main aspects of the changes in the regulations that we're talking about making. And at that, the meeting is all yours.
Okay, very good. So one thing is that Cumberland Farms doesn't, this came up at last meeting, Cumberland Farms doesn't have standing to sue us because they're not in the town.
Correct. But just other retailers or other towns are experiencing this with this particular retailer.
Right.
How many retailers do we have in town, in order to determine what the cap would be if we chose to go that route?
Okay. I believe we have 16 or 17. I think it fluctuates. Some people have let their tobacco permits expire and lapse, and they're not selling anymore, so they've kind of gone down over the past couple of years, which is good.
With all the construction in North Andover right now, particularly condos and apartments, I have reason to believe that in the not too distant future there'll be more establishments that will be selling cigarettes.
Right. The pharmacies have all gone tobacco-free, so our number's been dropping over the past several years, which is good. So we're under 20. I think we're at 16 or 17.
So the question right now that's on the floor is whether we would favor a cap.
We haven't gotten that far yet.
No.
I just gave an overview and a broad description of some of the things you guys had discussed in the past in terms of flavor restriction, capping, cap within a cap. I think that's it.
Would we be opening up ourselves to potentially legal consequences if we did implement a cap?
I have not seen any legal paperwork or any legal filings regarding caps. The only thing that we've seen is that article from Lowell regarding the flavor restriction. That's the only legal proceedings that have been filed on behalf of tobacco against local boards of health for many years. And as you know, we've done the 21 age restriction. We did do the flavor ban a few years ago. Obviously, the mint, menthol, and wintergreen were exempt from that. So that next step is, I think, what triggered Cumberland Farms to file suit against 6 towns.
Is there a cap on liquor licenses?
I believe there is.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
And it's a hard cap. I mean, in order to lift it, you actually have to petition the state legislature,
Yeah.
which we have done, but the town meeting has done it.
Yep.
The selectmen can't just say, oh, we're gonna allow more liquor licenses, it has to go through town meeting in order to do that. But this would be a board regulation, so this wouldn't be open for town meeting. It'd just be something that we either decided to implement or not on the basis of our appointed authority.
Yep. Yes, so I did include in your packets something that I mentioned briefly before you got here about procedures and things to consider when having a public hearing regarding your tobacco regulations. So, and Ron had gone over this with DJ Wilson with tobacco control. Your basic legal information and procedures. So I mean, basic stuff. It's just because I know we have some new board members, I wanted to put it in writing. So to give you guys a heads up that obviously we're going to make sure we're going to do the hearing notice is done correctly. In this packet is also the legal notice that we're going to be publishing in the paper, as well as a notice to retailers we're going to be sending out to each individual tobacco permit holder in town. We're going to do this probably within the next couple of weeks for the letter, and then wait until a few weeks before the meeting to do the legal notice. But we're going to give everybody a full, transparent heads up that this is on your agenda, this is going to be a public hearing. One of the reasons why we didn't want to do it tonight or have a meeting in August for it was because it is the summer. A lot of retailers do have staff on vacation or on vacation themselves. We didn't want to kind of rush it through. So we said, we'll do it in September. Everybody's back to school, summer's over. We'll give them plenty of notice. This is the stuff that we're going to do to make sure that this is done correctly and nobody can have any quarrels with how you guys did your process.
Right.
Obviously, you're going to make a motion to open the public hearing. Remind people to state their name, address, and business, if applicable, when they speak at the podium. You listen to their testimony, and if you set a time limit, you got to stick to it. I know you guys have done that in the past. So if you guys want to do that, that's up to you. Just make sure that it's stated and known in the beginning. Minimize responding to audience comments or questions, or giving your opinion, as such comments will end up in any lawsuit. So some things are meant for public hearings. Grandstanding and going beyond that, probably not for a public hearing if you want to end up in court.
Brian, will these
And I mean
recommended
Joe on that.
changes be, will these recommended changes be available on the website?
Yes, I've already met with IT. We have a meeting in a couple weeks. We're going to set up a link on the website that's going to have the draft regulations on it, as well as a form they can fill out to submit questions or comments directly to the board before the meeting. So in the retailer notice we send out, we will have that link on there, as well as the information on how to submit a question or comment. I mean, obviously they can call us anytime, but we're going to do it the high-tech way as well, just to make it a little bit easier. They can do it from their phone, whatever, but they can go on, they can log on their phone, go on our website and submit a question or a comment or statement. Maybe we'll have a sign up if they want to talk to. You can always add that in there. That was one of the things I was going to talk to you guys about tonight and get your thoughts on what you would want on that either form or on that link. If you guys want to just talk about that now, that would be great. My thing was literally just the regulations and then comments, questions, answers.
Broad as possible.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that later this year, when we talk about the body art regulations, the changes, it'll be basically the same as far as,
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
There'll probably be a lot less interest in it, though.
I might just do a legal notice for that one, put it in the paper. Maybe send out a letter to 3 people that we have.
Yeah.
So,
Should we come up with a consensus of what we feel should be in there? This way, instead of keeping it open, because people are going to make all these different suggestions.
Well, because of the public meeting law, all of our discussions and deliberations have to be public. In a sense, I think that we should basically put the notice of the hearing, the proposed regulation, and I think that we should just listen.
okay.
I don't think I want to do deliberations at that time, because I don't know how long it's going to go, and I don't want the meeting to go on forever.
Yeah.
But we'll see what the mood of whoever shows up is, understanding that, people who show up,
I mean, if they do have a comment section, I can give you guys the comments. You can read them ahead of the meeting. If there's any comments you want to address, you can address it at the meeting. But you don't have to discuss them or talk about them or bring it up at a public hearing. It's just comments that they're sending to you via the website. Just for,
I've gone over this, matter of fact, several times in the last month or two, and quite a few changes. Many of them are just grammatical. The biggest ones are the menthol, mint, and wintergreen, as I said earlier in this meeting. That is, eliminate those flavors from tobacco products. I'm wondering, because I have a couple of comments on what I really have a problem with here. And should I wait till the meeting?
things that are already in there?
Yeah.
No, I mean, you can, I don't see why you can't discuss it now.
you can discuss it now.
We can discuss it now.
It's a public meeting, it's posted agenda,
Okay.
just a discussion, there's no action being taken,
Okay.
and no votes being
No,
cast.
we're not going to take a vote on anything, but, I mean, you certainly can discuss anything that you find problematic.
These are pretty minor, and section 3.3, talking about verification of age, taking.
This is our
the age-
existing regulation.
Yeah, taking it down from 20, taking it up from 27, it's what, 27 right now to 40. I don't know about that.
What section is
That's 3.3,
3.3?
yeah. Just assume leave it like it is.
Well, just for
But it's
people
not a biggie.
listening, what it says is, each person selling or distributing tobacco products or nicotine delivery products shall verify the age of the purchaser by means of a valid government-issued photographic identification containing the bearer's date of birth, that the purchaser is 21 years or older. Verification is required for any person who appears to be under the age of 27. And so there's a modification to that you object to.
I think 27 is fine, other than taking it up to 40.
So we can discuss that?
Yeah, you guys, whatever you guys want. That's an easy discussion item. I know Ron wanted to move it to 40. Most other towns have done that just because.
Well, most other towns have done that. Now, that I did not know.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where
Okay.
27 is so close to 21 that I might not be able to tell if somebody's 25 or 20. But 40 is a little bit, you just past that hump where you can say, okay, you know what? That person's definitely older than 21.
So the other way of doing it is to implement the Boston Garden Rule.
Everyone.
The
Where you
Fenway rule,
basically,
yeah.
the Fenway Rule, yeah.
That's a Fenway Park.
I know what, we have done that for retailers that have had multiple violations.
Right.
We just did that this past January for one of the retailers that had their third sale, I think, or the second sale in 2 years. So I think,
See, I don't have a huge problem with changing that. It's just saying that if you're relying on the appearance of somebody, you better be really darn sure that they're not under 21. And we are basically stating in our regulation that unless you're going to get in front of us and say that that person looked 40 years old to me, that you better be checking their ID. And the alternative to doing that is saying card everybody.
I don't have a problem leaving it as it is 40. That is the
As a-
recommendation.
that's a draft.
Because as you just said, that's
Yeah.
the way it is in a lot of other cities
Yeah.
and towns in the
I think
Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
It was 27
I did
for a
not
long
know
time. Years ago, sometimes put up to 30, but even that was still kind of cutting it close in terms of appearance and look. I know that years ago, when I was 18, Ron couldn't have any students that had tattoos because you have to be 18 to get a tattoo, but some teenagers get tattoos before they're 18. And they would go into a store and have a sale, and the guy would be like, well, they got a tattoo. I assume they were 18. He's still sold. It's still a violation. Kid's not 18, you didn't ID him. So I guess 21, 27, it's kind of close.
Right.
Fine.
40, I think, works, but that's completely up to you guys as a board.
So I just give you a corollary. I used to work in the liquor industry a long time ago when I was in college and graduate school, and we used to have this thing. It was called the Beverage Journal. It had all the wholesale prices listed, but then in the back it had all the ABCC hearings, and all of the hearings. I mean, it was just after reading this thing, sitting at the counter waiting for sales to come in and things like that, reading the Beverage Journal, which is like watching paint dry. but I came to realize that there's absolutely no defense for not, at least for alcohol sales, there's absolutely no defense for not requiring a state-issued ID. And it doesn't matter what you thought they look like. I mean, in a sense, we're saying that, tobacco is not alcohol here. We're saying that if you're going to rely on that and you come before us and we're going to have a picture of that person, you're going to say that they don't look 40. I think it's being nice.
Right.
So I would say, I don't think it's being overbearing at all. I think it's being nice. It's saying that we're going to give you a little leeway. If somebody comes in and they've got a cane and gray hair, you say, I thought he's really only 18 and he's got progeria or something like that. So it's just kind of funny. But in the liquor business, if you don't rely, if you sell and you relied on something, it's very specific in Massachusetts state law. You didn't rely on a Massachusetts-issued government ID. You're SOL. You're out of luck.
That's funny. Okay.
And on the next page, 411, which is the permit capping options. 3 options mentioned here. First of all, I don't like
These are the regular regulations.
to...
This is different.
Yeah, that was the last one.
Yeah, I don't like to, I'm not enamored at all about interfering with business. Why should a regulated establishment be allowed to sell tobacco products and another similar establishment, a new establishment, not be allowed? I don't particularly like that. I don't really like having caps. We're talking about caps on the number of permits in town, and or if the permit is not renewed, then it's to be returned to the Board of Health and retired. Again, I just don't like interfering with business. I understand why it's there, but I wish it wasn't there.
Then that's your prerogative. You can make that recommendation at the public hearing.
So you're talking about the basic cap and then the dual cap.
Yeah.
The dual cap is the one that brings it, when the permit is
expired.
returned back, expired.
Yes, yep.
That cap now comes down.
Correct. So if we have 17 tobacco retailers and one of them closes shop, goes out of business, they don't renew their tobacco permit, then our cap number goes from 17 to 16.
So then if Joe Schmo business owner comes in and says, oh, I'm going to buy that business, I'm going to keep everything the same, now cannot.
Now you
have
cannot
it
get a tobacco permit because the cap has reduced by 1 through attrition. When that person or business closed, retired, let their permit expire and didn't renew it. I think some towns have done that, some towns haven't. That's for you guys to debate back and forth. If you want to cap it at what we have now, say we have 17 now, cap it at 17, and keep it that way, and if somebody closes up, we still have 17, we have an open permit.
So we have three options here, none of which I like, and so there's no misunderstanding. The first option is to limit the amount of permits to sell tobacco. The second option is to have the flexibility and capability of retiring, say if someone closes shop,
Yep.
of retiring a permit, which
Yep.
go back, Board of Health, and it's gone, it disappears. And
Yep.
the third option is the combination of both of them. That's what we're
Oh,
talking
no,
about.
we have actually another option. We have another option because,
But it's not here.
no, it's not there, but I mean, again, we could modify that.
Yeah. This
Is,
is
we could
just
say,
Draft.
you could just change the draft to say that if you have a permit, it's restricted to the location at which it is, that you could transfer it to a new owner, but you can't transfer it to another physical location. I mean, that would be
That's
another way
interesting.
of doing
That's-
it that doesn't,
good.
that
Yeah.
basically doesn't
I like that.
harm the equity of the business interest, that still kind of serves a public health purpose, but doesn't harm the equity of the business interest, you know.
And what's your feeling on capping the number of permits?
My own feeling is that I think a cap is appropriate. I don't want to see us issuing more permits.
And there will be new businesses as the town continues to grow.
Right, but they don't have to be in the business of selling a dangerous product. I think that's within our purview. They
Yeah, but
could,
it's like saying, okay, this business can sell this dangerous product, but this, because they've been there for a while, they're grandfathered in, but no, a new business can't sell it. I don't know about that, Frank, I just don't know.
well, I would think about it this way, Joe. We know that the product is being diverted to younger people, and that a way that we have to control that is to control the number of permits. And if you increase the access to any addictive substance, you know that you get more use of it because by its nature it's addictive. So I think that there's a business interest in selling a product that's legal, but there's a public health interest in limiting the exposure of your target population to an addictive substance. And when you think about it that way, we don't allow liquor stores to proliferate on every corner because we would have more drunk driving, more problems related to alcohol. When you get alcohol use, it comes along with alcohol abuse. Not everybody abuses alcohol, but if you increase the access, you'll get more of it. So, and that's true of every addictive substance. You know, if you talk about gambling is an addictive substance. So all these things all operate at the same final common pathway, which is they increase your dopamine. So whether it's tobacco use, drug use, marijuana use, alcohol use, gambling, you know, certain types of things that just kind of light people's signals up, we know that those are potentially harmful because there are certain members of our society who are going to be I don't want to say unfairly, but they're more susceptible to those things. And I think that a public health strategy of limiting access is well-worn and well-studied and well-practiced. And I don't have a problem with capping it, but I do agree with your fairness argument that, you know, it's not our job to protect the business community, but it's also not our job to harm them either. So if somebody has a license and they're going to sell their mom and pop grocery store, and that includes a tobacco license, I, for one, wouldn't have a problem with transferring the license. If they want to transfer it to a new location, that might be a place where we need to be involved.
So how does that work? Say they want to sell they want to get out of the business, but say a hair salon comes in and takes over that location, then what happens to that permit? Because obviously they can't transfer it to that new location. Does it just kind of get dissolved, or like, you know what I mean? That would have to be something we'd have to consider.
That's a great question. We haven't figured out the answer to
Yeah,
that.
just something to think about.
So we were just answering the first question, but
Yeah.
if, you know, I think
about it.
his point, and you have a great point too, but his point is like, you know, that that permit isn't available for the next owner of that business.
Right.
And
But there should be still now an open permit available. If we do not, if we have just a basic cap, there should be now an open permit available. So if they go to a different location within North Andover, that that permit should be able to be applied
Or
for.
if it's not transferred, then it's, somehow
Well,
dissolved,
it
you know what I
can't be
mean? I don't know.
transferred if we do the regulation that they're going to a different
Right.
address. But that permit is now being handed in, now you have an open permit that they can now apply to go somewhere else.
so would we want to retire the permit at that point, is your question?
Right,
So that's up to this
Because if
group.
you don't wanna do
It's up to
the
this group to
location.
decide.
yeah.
And we can discuss the pros and cons of retiring a permit that's not kept in the same location. I think I know where Joe is on this.
Then I'll stay out of the discussion.
No,
Because
please.
you're right.
Please, Daphne, do you have any,
Is there a way, we have currently 17, and I understand, because business is always good for the town, to say, okay, just look at the overall, what other towns have, to say we can cap at 25. If we have 25 businesses, then we just don't add any more permits. Is that possible for us to do?
yeah, I think we're pretty much reaching consensus that we're gonna cap it at the existing number.
Okay,
Maybe a consensus -1.
okay. Then I would.
Which is less than a consensus, but it's
I
still
would agree with
majoritarian.
the transferring of the permit. I think that's a good idea, versus retiring it and not having, just kind of like a liquor license when someone buys a business and they transfer the liquor license over. I
So
would agree with that.
what if a convenience store closes and a salon opens up? Now there's a permit out there. Should we keep that? Should we make that permit available for another business someplace else, or should we retire
I
that?
think we should make it available. I agree with making
I
it
agree.
available, since we're not adding any more permits.
Because we have that cap.
Yes,
So business 17,
can apply for
Go-
the permit,
so
go through
now,
the
yeah, business 17,
processes.
that 17 permit is open. Somebody else is free to take that permit now, but we're not going up to 18,
18,
for example.
yeah.
So how would we allocate that permit then?
First come, first served basis would be
Yeah.
my,
Maybe a wait list.
either a wait list or first come, first served. So, we could always start a policy or procedure in the department to control that, maintain that, monitor it, see who's out there. And then if there's a list that we have, just keep that list active and go down one by one, from number 1 all the way down through until we find somebody that still wants it, then they can apply for it and get it. Could be a simple procedure in-house for keeping track of that.
When you have caps on permits and such, person who wants to smoke, he or she's just going to go somewhere else to get it. But the person that has that new business will economically suffer because they were not in position to sell cigarettes. They don't have a permit to do it. But if someone really wants to smoke, they're gonna buy cigarettes. Period.
Well, it's in
But didn't you say, Frank, that there's information that if you have caps there, they do work? Because I did not know that.
If you cap the access to something, you get less access. I mean, it's a very simple concept. If you have a liquor store on every corner, you're going to have people buying more liquor.
I'll just go somewhere else.
No, they don't go somewhere else because it costs money to go someplace else. It costs inconvenience, it costs time. If somebody really wants to drink, I mean, they can drive up the highway and go to, the Hampton, State Liquor Store, which is right there on the highway for them. But, seriously, there's a reason that towns cap alcohol permits. And that goes back to the Depression era, but they do, and they have, and they've been doing it for a long time. I don't know of any place that doesn't cap alcohol permits.
Well, I worked in Dublin Island for quite some time, and there is a bar in every corner there, and they don't have any problems at all.
They got big problems there.
But for like a business owner, isn't it kind of like someone who wanted to open up a marijuana shop? They already know they can't come to North Andover. So if someone's looking to open up a shop and sell tobacco and they know that we're capped at 17, then they're gonna go somewhere else.
Right.
So they already know that, with that, as being a new business owner, where they're looking, and they've already looked into where the options are, I guess.
Now, if we do end up with a cap, and again, this will be further discussed, probably brought up by people during the open meeting in 2 more months, but if there is a cap, one could still come, a new business establishment, and come in front of the board and ask for a variance.
They could.
Yes? No? Yeah.
They could. Hey, they have to give a compelling reason.
I want to make money. That's a good reason.
Joe, I mean, just think about it. I mean, let's say that Joe McCarthy tonight decides he wants to get high. All right? But you've got to go walk
This is
up.
televised, so I'm not going to answer that.
But just say Joe McCarthy wants to get high tonight, and he's got to walk up and down Main Street. He's got to look down, everywhere, kind of anyone selling any weed, as opposed to whether there's a store on Main Street that says come on in. Now, which Joe is more likely to smoke weed tonight? The second one.
I'm staying away from that conversation.
I'm just saying.
That's one way to look at it.
It's
isn't that the mechanism
if you provide easy access, you get more utilization. And when you're talking about something that is an addictive substance, there are certainly people who are more susceptible to addiction than others, and that's a public health concern. That, and it's not a nanny state thing. It's just that you can tolerate so much utilization where it produces a cost that's acceptable, and then when the utilization goes up higher, the costs start to become less desirable. If you double the number of smokers in town, you're going to have down the road more COPD, more lung cancer. And the thing is that it's not really talking about the smokers. The people who are smoking are already going to smoke, and they already know where they're buying their tobacco. The problem that you're really trying to get is you're trying to prevent the new users from coming on board. Why would you want to expand access to expose new users to more opportunity to use? And just think of, the two Joe McCarthys, the good Joe McCarthy and the evil twin Joe McCarthy, walking down the street wanting to get high tonight. Which one is going to be more successful at actually getting there? The one who's got more access.
What about the surrounding communities? Is there a cap? Andover, Lawrence, Methuen, Haverhill?
I don't believe so. Not yet. I think they're all looking at this just like you are. I don't know if anybody's had any public hearings yet. I would have to check with Ron on that. I know that some of the towns, I think Massachusetts, have done it already. I know Ron gave us a list and talked about it last time.
I think I used to work in Saugus, and we didn't really talk about this that much while I was there, but I'm pretty sure they have a cap, and the way they did it was they had a waiting list. And so when one would go out of business, one would retire, when it came open, whoever was first on the waiting list basically got theirs. Whoever was behind them, I'm pretty sure, moved up. And that's just how they ran it.
There's a handful of towns that have done the cap already.
We're not keeping businesses from coming to town. We're just saying that if you want to come to town, please come to town, sell whatever you want to sell, but there's a cap number of tobacco stores. So your business plan probably should not include profits from tobacco sales. And you have the opportunity to go someplace else. If you want to come here, this is the environment that you deal with. I don't think it's really as anti-business as it seems on the surface. Because people are going to come to town deciding whether or not their primary business is going to be viable, without the opportunity to sell a dangerous product that we, as a public health board, have some responsibility to oversee.
Will require some more thought.
Well,
We have 2 months.
I'm going to get that pack of cherry cigarettes and I'm going to put them in front of your nose again.
Like you did several years ago. When we tighten up these regulations, by the way, Frank, how many times was you on the phone with me?
We were on the phone a lot.
No, you were on the phone with me a lot.
But no, this was the work product of a consensus of people who think differently, but who can talk together and come to an agreement and serve a public purpose.
Those are the only comments I have on this. Again, much of it is just grammatical changes. The big things is elimination of the 3 different types of flavors in cigarettes. And,
I do think that that's a big deal.
The
yeah.
flavors.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I need to hear more.
Okay. Ron's going to be the next meeting.
Yep.
You can have other advocates there as well.
Right.
I will resend out the draft regulations again to you guys. I will post them online. Maybe I will do the comment section on there and see what people say.
I think that that would be wise.
Okay. How about having a sign up for talking at the public hearing? Do 5-minute blocks or 3-minute blocks and have a set number? So it doesn't go all night and you can limit.
It just comes down to fairness, and I'd like to do, I don't want 5 minutes. I'm not even sure I want 3 minutes. I think I would do
Okay.
2 minutes, but we'd have to have some kind of a way to display the time so that it's fair.
Okay.
And then I'll enforce it with razor-like precision.
Okay. And do you want me to have at least a, maybe a, not a sign-up sheet, but at least if you want to talk at the meeting, please enter your name here so we can gauge how many people we have that at least sign up ahead of time that want to talk.
Yeah.
Granted, it might only be half the people sign up ahead of time, but at least we'll start with them first and see where it goes.
And at some point, we need to close the list.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah. So we will post that. If you want to get on the list, get on it now. There will be a time when it closes.
Yep.
And then the discussion will basically be that you'll have, we'll have to make up some ground rules to just keep it from getting, keep it organized
Okay.
and keep it moving forward.
So you want 2 minutes?
2 minutes, we need to have a visible time device that people can see so that they know when their time is running out.
Okay.
Because when their time is up, I'm going to say, your time is up, thank you.
I don't even know if it's necessary to have a time limitation right now. Depends upon how many people want to speak.
How many do you want me to open up to? How many slots do you want to have?
Well, if we do 30 slots at 2 minutes each, that's an hour. I think that's more than enough.
Okay.
Yeah, but there may only be 10 people that want to speak, or
Right.
5.
And I have no
so-
idea what the
So,
Well, if
participation will be, but
can't you note the day of the open house meeting that, the open meeting that it's going to be restricted time?
I think we have to tell people that there's going to be a restricted time.
Yes.
Because it's a fairness in the warning.
Right.
That,
Yes.
you know.
You mentioned
Because
the
if you're
time.
gonna, if you think that there's a 5-minute time limit, you prepare a 5-minute talk, and you show up and you can only give 2 minutes, I think that that's not fair.
no, I'll have that specifically stamped on the sign-up sheet.
Right.
And I'll have 30 slots at 2 minutes each, and have people put their name and maybe topic or an item that they want to talk about for 2 minutes.
Yeah,
If it's a specific thing in the regulations that they want to talk about, like flavor or the cap or whatever, but I'll put in 2 minutes and I'll make it clear. You have 2 minutes to speak. These are the 30 slots. Please sign up for one, and we'll go from there. Maybe 7:15, 8:15 will be the public comment period.
right.
If you want to do it that, you could do it at the beginning or at the end. Do the beginning, get it out of the way, let people talk, and then once everybody's done talking, go from there.
Let me think about that.
Okay. I'm meeting with IT on August 21st. So it's a few weeks. Gonna get this ironed out and set up right after that. So it'll
Okay.
be but a month before the meeting, we'll have it up and running.
Good.
Do we need to vote on, do we need to come up with those regulations at that meeting, or are we able to take the information
No, we're just,
from the public and then?
we can take the information from the public and we can deliberate at another time. We're not obligated to vote that night.
Right. You're not, what you do is you'll have the public hearing, you open the public hearing, deliberate, debate, have public comment, make any changes you guys want to the regulations, and then you can continue to the next meeting to incorporate any other changes you want, or any other research you want to do, and then close it and vote at the next public hearing. Correct?
So, yeah, so We don't have to take an action at the public hearing, but it is a place where we can gather information and get testimony.
Do we want to limit the people that may want to speak to just town residents? Because maybe some lobbyists here from the tobacco industry.
No, because you have business owners that may be from out of town.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I'm not sure what your legal permits would be to restrict people from talking at an advertised public hearing on a topic like this. I don't know if you have any
I'm
insight
not
on that.
comfortable making that kind of limitation. No, I think it should be open.
Okay. Yeah, so you open the public hearing, and then you have to make a motion to close the public hearing. If there's a write-in period, set a deadline to receive comments. I'll do that on the website. You may be asked if there will be another hearing. You should think about this ahead of time and keep it to one public hearing or one meeting or 2 meetings. Think about that between now and September. If you want to do it all in one, close it and vote in the same meeting, you can do that. Or if you want to do it another one, people may ask you that at the first initial public hearing. So just think about that between now and then. Because you can answer it, say, no, we're going to have a meeting in October, we're going to come back and close it at that time, and then vote. Take any comments into consideration over the next month. So that's something procedurally you guys can think about now and determine between now and September.
So if we were to just have an open public meeting in September, we could recess the meeting and reopen it at the following meeting.
Yeah. You could do it all in one meeting and make motions and changes to the draft that you guys have in front of you, to strike things out of it, to add things to it, and then close the public hearing and pass them as amended. I think is a way to do it if you want to do it in one meeting, but I think 2 might be better.
I'm thinking that 2 might be easier, because I think what we may want to do is just basically
Work on the draft at that public hearing, have it amended for the next meeting.
and then make a vote at the next meeting.
Okay.
And then close the public meeting at the end of the next meeting, or at an appropriate time.
All right. I think it's pretty much all that I have out of that stuff. Things that Ron just wanted me to bring up and discuss with you guys. So then there's a legal notice. I'll have this finalized. There's a draft here for you to look at. Any questions or comments on this particular legal notice, let me know, and I can do that. And then the last page is the notice to the retailers. This is just the template that he had. This will be obviously tailored to us and what we're going to have sent out to everybody. And I will include the information about the website, talking times, sign up, things like that.
I think it's appropriate at this point to change the draft regulation to reflect the discussion that was at this meeting with regard to not a cap within a cap, but just basically a hard cap at whatever the existing number of licenses is. And that
The license is site-specific.
the license would be site-specific.
Site-specific?
Yeah. I agree
And that when
with
a
both.
license lapses, it would go back to the town to be distributed by its formula that would be determined from time to time
Okay.
by the health department.
So site-specific, or it goes back to the board.
Well, it would be site-specific, and if it lapsed, it would go back to the board to be reallocated based on whatever formula we have at the time. I don't know that we need to put that in the regulation as to how we're gonna allocate it. I think we should have some flexibility in that, as long as it stands the test of fairness.
Yeah, it would just be policy set by the board or procedure set by the department.
Exactly.
Okay.
You comfortable with that, Joe?
Yeah, when this goes on the website, basically you're talking about scratching 411 out and
Yeah.
changing it with the,
Yeah, I'll revise that to
With
include
the
this
sentiment
language.
that we discussed and
yeah.
we
Yeah.
reached kind of quasi-consensus on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Any further discussion before we move on to the next business item?
Nope.
I think we've beaten that one with a stick. All right.
Excellent.
It's very important.
Yep. Okay.
All right, so next on the agenda is body art. Joe, you've done a lot of work on this, right? Brian?
I pass this off to Stephen.
And he has done the work.
Oh, Stephen's done that.
I spent a little bit of time,
Yes.
but
So
it's his.
All
Did a
right.
good job. A
in
very good
your okay, so you can put this up.
So yeah, I put these in the packets they gave you. The first page is just a general kind of overview of just basically like summarizing what we were looking to do. We were just kind of looking to update the regulations a little bit, add some things in we were missing, and then just, I guess, compare them to some local and some other ones in Massachusetts. Basically, what I did was I just examined about 5 other towns. I want to say 3 of them were local. 2 of them had items that we were missing or wanted to, I guess, compare and see what they had in regards to the differences between ours and theirs. So under just some of the new stuff we added, it was mostly stuff that we didn't really have information on or we were looking to add. So there were just obviously some general definitions. We added some requirements as far as people who would train apprentices for body arts. The requirements, you know what I mean, they just kind of spanned anything from how much experience they needed to have to whether they needed to develop a curriculum, limiting how many apprentices could be assigned to a trainer at a time. We didn't really have like a concrete fine for violations, so we added some stuff in there. We added some stuff as far as exposure control plans and reporting those incidents. So, you know, like if the person practicing the body art was exposed to blood or something like that, or their clothes were exposed to it, basically that they had to report it, develop a actual physical report that they could just fill out once that happened, and how they would react to that with the controlling it. And then there were a couple other things we probably need to discuss that were in there that I added in, but again, this is just a draft. And then there were some things we updated or just added information to, such as practitioner requirements, basically what apprentices are required to either have or do for their training, and then items that have to do with operating the actual facility for the body art, whether that be the physical requirements such as the ceilings, the floors, things like that, to lighting, to sanitation and record keeping. And then also we just added, or we can add some things, I should say, to the permitting and what we require for them to submit in order to get a permit. But like I said, pretty much this is just a draft. In the draft itself, anything in blue is either new things or it's from the addendum Brian had developed that we were just kind of finally combining into one document. And I guess I'm just looking to hear what you guys have to say down the road. So yeah, that's pretty much it so far.
That's great. Thank you.
This is just
A lot of work.
Yeah. This is just for your review. No public hearing scheduled. The permitting season for body art doesn't go, the next permits aren't due until January. January 1st is their permitting year. So we've got plenty of time to look at this and think about it. But we did the addendum just about a year ago, actually, a year and a month ago. And that was a great stopgap, I think, for this past year. But I think cleaning it up, putting it into an actual regulation versus an addendum, and any of the new things that we've seen out there with other towns that have created regulations as well to kind of fill in all those gaps that we were missing. So Stephen's done a great job with pulling all this information together and researching it and doing all of the cut and paste.
And what's the status of body art establishments in North Andover, right?
4?
4?
4, and I think 5 practitioners, but 2 are not local right now. They are away. they travel and they work in different locations. I think one is in Florida, one's in California right now, and the other 3 are still here. So it's small, but there's some procedures there that I think we need to keep our eye on. Face tattoos and stuff, you know. That's it. So that's just for your review. We'll touch base with this probably sometime this fall. I think, and then do another public hearing late fall, I think.
There's also, there's like a small list of questions on the back. That was just a couple I had off the top of my head in regards to the regulations so far. But anything else, obviously, you guys can definitely let me know. I'd love to get the feedback.
On number 18, non-criminal disposition, we reference another city's ordinance.
Yeah, that was one of the things I have to look into a little more, just in regards to what we have here.
I think you should say this language adopted from this ordinance rather than
Okay.
reference their ordinance. So if they change their ordinance, it changes our regulations. So it's
Okay.
just not good practice to put that into your own regulation.
For sure.
So you can say, just kind of, you can lift it completely, and if you want to say adopted from this city's ordinance,
Okay.
I don't think you need to do that, but what I would not do is I would not reference another regulatory body's regulation, because those can change based on how that body's needs and,
Okay.
Is this for the
Change.
fine structure?
sorry?
What's the,
It just says,
non-criminal
18,
disposition.
non-criminal disposition says accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40, which is going to supersede us. So it's
Yeah.
fine to reference that.
Yeah.
And Northampton City Ordinance, Chapter 25, Section 5, whoever violates any provision of these rules and regulations may be penalized by non-criminal disposition. I don't even think you need that.
no, you
I
just did
think-
Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section
Yeah.
2D is your,
You just make a statement of
Yeah.
fact.
Yeah.
But,
I think I
we'll
took
have
that
to
out
look
and
at
I
this
printed
in
the
a
wrong
little bit
copy.
more
Alright.
detail, but I don't like
no,
referencing.
we wouldn't reference this. We'd keep it under Mass General Law,
Yeah.
21D.
You don't have to say, we got this from Provincetown, we got this one from Saugus, we got this one from...
But yeah, I
Northampton.
think some of the towns across the state have started to adopt some much better regulations
Yeah,
from the ones that were the kind of template regs that came out back in 2004.
right.
And I think we're at the forefront of this as well.
Good.
We're one of the earliest towns to do this, and I've had inquiries from some of our neighbors saying, hey, when you're done, can I take a look at those?
Yeah,
Because they know that we've done a lot of work on these, and
no, thank you, it's excellent work.
appreciate that.
So we'll all look at this and come back with comments, and we'll rip it up.
Please do.
All right, so what do we have left?
Just under, it's not on the agenda, but I know that you and Caroline have talked about camps and our recreational camp regulations that we've been working with, and we're at the end of camp permitting season now, so she's not completely gray yet, but she's getting close. It's been a very rough, stressful camp season this year with the new regulations. So if you want to just,
Oh, so the Massachusetts had updated their regulations last spring, but yet we still had some camps that were kind of slow to pick up on things, and last minute, we had some difficulty, but we got through and everything's good now. So we're trying to just work into the regulations that I'm working on, some of the issues that we've had this season. So is that what you wanted me to touch upon? I didn't.
yeah.
Okay.
The stuff that you guys have talked about with the dates and.
Oh, so because a lot of the camps start their signups and everything like that in January, I was saying to Brian that ideally, if we could try to, I have everything done, so whenever you guys are ready, I can submit the changes I've made, and hopefully by the end of the year. So come January, camps that are signing people up and all that already have our regulations. Does that make sense? Okay. So obviously, after all the tobacco stuff. It's a little more important.
So yeah, that's it. So just stuff we've been working on in-house.
And, sorry, one other thing. I also put in the folder some information on the flu vaccine because the senior center had asked me to get them some dates for the clinic because they like to put out their quarterly newsletter. However, last week, the manufacturer that we used notified us that all shipments are going to be delayed about a month because the World Health Organization was, because we had such a late flu season in that, like, we saw a lot of H3N2 later, like March, April. They delay, and they usually formulate the vaccine in February, March time, so they pushed that back. And so that has delayed all the manufacturers with the flu vaccine. So I wrote up that little fact sheet to put in the newsletter so people are just aware, and we'll put out something as we get closer, just so people know that clinics are going to be pushed back a few weeks, so they won't be as early as they have been in years past. So that's all.
And how do we stand for other vaccines?
We have shingles, we have Pneumovax 23 and Prevnar 13, which are both the pneumococcal vaccines, and we have measles, mumps, rubella as well.
But I'm talking about availability of.
We have all those
Oh, we
right now.
have all
Yes.
them right now.
Yeah. So we're slowly
job.
building.
We're building up. We're ready to rock and roll.
What do you say?
Ready to rock and roll.
Now, I noticed that a lot of seniors here in our senior center do not live in North Andover.
Oh,
Yeah. And suppose someone from out of town wanted a vaccine, they couldn't get it from their doctor, it's not available from their town nurse. Would we be in a position to work with them?
it wouldn't be an issue for, say, the flu or pneumonia, because those will be covered and reimbursed through our reimbursement company. So for instance, our flu clinics, we've had Andover, Methuen, other, neighboring communities come to the flu clinics, and it's no big deal. We just process the form as usual. With something like shingles, where it is so expensive and it's being something that we're offering right now, Health Department and Senior Center have kind of come together and taken on the cost. Right now, that's just for North Andover residents. So if someone does contact me and say, hey, I'm from Andover, Haverhill, I say at this time, we can't offer it to you, or, it has to be at cost or whatever, or I refer them back to their health department and say try to reach out or check some pharmacies. So I try to work with them a little bit, but we are holding that vaccine right now for our residents at this time.
That's quite a change when you spoke, and by the way, did a very good job with the lecture series.
Oh, thanks.
A number of weeks ago. I didn't think we were in that good a condition at that time for all these vaccines.
Well, I think it was the end of the fiscal year, so. No, I think we had the shingles already kind of up and running, and then the pneumonia vax we've kind of just, or the Prevnar we've had kind of on a circulating, we've had that for the last couple of years, so. Measles, it's something we should have, with everything going on.
Any other discussion?
No.
Joe, you always have something to discuss.
I'm in a position to make a motion.
Didn't come from me.
If there's no more discussion, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.